organization and hunted him down.
Hello and welcome back to yet another marvelous video. Audiences today are a little spoiled. Seriously, we live in a golden age for superhero shows, but it wasn't always this way. Back in the day, studios were a little experimental. They'd test out superhero shows on TV with pilots. Some of these shows vanished without a trace, and others became strange little gems that only the most die-hard fans remember. That's why today, we're diving into 10 of these forgotten superhero pilots that aired just once before vanishing. So sit back and enjoy as we dive on in. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves though, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Doctor Strange, 1978. Marvel really started dipping its toes into TV in the 1970s. Spider-Man swung onto screens first, followed by The Incredible Hulk, which stuck around for a solid 5 years on CBS. But there was one Marvel pilot that hasn't really stuck in people's memories the same way. CBS's Doctor Strange. It only got one shot, a 90-minute TV movie in 1978. For viewers back then, it was likely their very first glimpse of the Sorcerer Supreme. Unfortunately, Doctor Strange ended up airing at the same time as the hugely popular Roots, and according to Stan Lee, that timing ruined its ratings. One pilot aired, and then it vanished. No series, no second chance. But for fans of Marvel, it's a fascinating look at what could have been. The 1978 Doctor Strange pilot opens with some seriously trippy, almost horror film vibes. We're introduced to Morgan Le Fay, played by Jessica Walters, who's plotting with a sinister cloud-like entity to destroy the world's magical protector, an old wizard named Lindmer, played by John Mills, who's looking for a successor. She has just 3 days to complete her mission. Meanwhile, Wong, played by Clyde Kusatsu, is caring for Lindmer at the Sanctum, and he's sent to track down Dr. Stephen Strange. Strange, played by Peter Hooton, is living a fairly normal 70s life as a psychiatrist, but with a flirtatious side, and begins to notice strange dreams and mystical occurrences. Morgan Le Fay takes over the body of a young woman, Clea, played by Anne-Marie Martin, to attack Lindmer, leaving her traumatized and in the hospital, coincidentally under Doctor Strange's care. Lindmer begins introducing Strange to the mystic arts, showing him a world beyond science, while Le Fay continues her attempts to manipulate him and Clea. After a series of confrontations across mystical dimensions, Strange finally embraces his powers, defeats Le Fay, and returns home. Lindmer reveals that the tests were all to see if Strange would make the right choice, reject earthly temptations, and take up the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme. The pilot ends on a lighthearted note, with Strange playfully using his powers and ready for future mystical adventures, though as history shows, the series never came to be. Doctor Strange is a movie that's hard not to like. Sure, it has flaws, the budget is obviously not a lot, the story waters down the character's original arc, and there are way too many dull hospital scenes that could have been lifted straight from any 70s medical drama, but despite all that, the film has this weird, slightly sinister tone that actually fits the characters pretty well. Back in the late 60s and 70s, magic, mysticism, and even satanic cults were all the rage in pop culture, so it makes sense that Hollywood thought Doctor Strange might click. Other than a VHS release back in the 80s, this movie kind of disappeared. Universal and Marvel mostly forgot it existed. Because of that, people started treating it like a total disaster, but really that's not fair. 1978's Doctor Strange is quirky and a little rough around the edges, but there is a charm in it. It's a weird, fascinating glimpse of what superhero TV could have looked like in the late 70s. The Amazing Spider-Man, 1977 pilot movie. Marvel's first live-action Spider-Man hit TV screens a year before Doctor Strange tried his luck. The 1977 CBS pilot movie, The Amazing Spider-Man, introduced Peter Parker as a regular guy juggling high school and the responsibilities of being a web-slinging hero. In this pilot, a mysterious guru named Edward Byron shows up in New York and starts causing chaos, using mind control to make people rob banks and threatening that 10 ordinary citizens will take their own lives unless the city pays a $50 million ransom. Meanwhile, college student Peter Parker is juggling classes and his freelance photography gig for the Daily Bugle, all while dodging the constant gripes of his boss, J. Jonah Jameson. Everything changes when Peter is bitten by a radioactive spider. Suddenly, he's stronger, faster, and able to climb walls. After testing his powers, he invents a web-slinging device, crafts a mask, and steps into his new role as Spider-Man. His first heroic acts include stopping a purse thief and saving saving Professor Noah Tyler, who's been brainwashed by Byron. Teamwork with Tyler's daughter, Judy, leads Peter to uncover Byron's scheme. When the Guru tries to force Peter into jumping off the Empire State Building, Spider-Man cleverly jams the signal, turning the tables. Byron is eventually defeated and convinced to turn himself in, and Peter finds his place as New York's newest hero. Despite decent ratings, the show only lasted 13 episodes. Even though the story was set in New York, most of the filming actually took place in Los Angeles. Nicholas Hammond played Peter Parker, but all of Spider-Man's stunts were handled by the series' stunt coordinator, Brad Waugh. Behind the scenes, there was some tension. Stan Lee and producer John Goodman clashed over the show's direction, with Lee famously telling Pizzazz magazine that he thought it was too juvenile. Even though the series ended up as the 19th highest-rated show of the season, CBS didn't want to commit to a regular time slot. The show was expensive to produce, it didn't fully appeal to older audiences, and CBS was worried about being labeled a superhero network, especially since they were already airing multiple live-action comic book shows at the time. Fans were vocal too. Some loved it, while others criticized the departures from the comics in Season 2 and the lack of classic Spider-Man villains. On the bright side, the series gave fans their first live-action look at Peter Parker's iconic spider tracer devices, which became a recurring gadget throughout the show. Justice League of America. 1997. The 1997 Justice League of America pilot arrived at a time when superheroes on TV and in the movies were in a bit of a slump, and it's easy to see why it's a largely forgotten piece of media today. The pilot opens in the city of New Metro, which is under attack from a villain called the Weatherman. Using tornadoes and hailstorms, he proves he can manipulate the elements, and the Justice League swoops in to protect the city. Meanwhile, a meteorologist at his lab accidentally discovers a device that gives her the power to turn anything she touches into ice, and to make things more complicated, she realizes her boss is actually the Weatherman. She brings this information to the League, who invites her to help stop him. On paper, a live-action Justice League series in 1997 sounds like a dream come true, but the execution was disastrous. The pilot was so poorly received that it might have set superhero adaptations back years if CBS had gone forward with a full series. It took itself way too seriously while suffering from cheesy production, awkward acting, and a weak script, so much so that even the notoriously campy Batman and Robin suddenly looks great in comparison. One of the big issues was that the heavy hitters, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, just weren't part of the mix, which left the spotlight on secondary heroes like the Flash, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter. To fill out the team, the show introduced C-listers Fire and Ice, who never really clicked. A few performances stood out. David Ogden Stiers gave a good performance as Martian Manhunter, and Miguel Ferrer clearly had fun playing the Weatherman, but even their efforts couldn't lift the pilot above its overall awkwardness. By the time CBS saw the final product, they wisely passed on the series entirely, never even airing the pilot as a movie of the week. In retrospect, it's a fascinating what could have been, but it's one that thankfully didn't make audiences write off superheroes for good. The animated Justice League series a few years later would eventually prove that an adaptation could succeed, just not this one. Power Pack, 1991. Before Marvel became what it is today, they actually tried their hand at a live-action kids superhero show with Power Pack in 1991. The show was built around the adventures of the Power siblings, Alex, Julie, Jack, and Katie, who received superpowers from a dying alien named Alefire, whose race, the Chimelians, were locked in a war with the reptilian Snarks. With their new abilities, the kids set out to protect the Earth and stop anyone, including a corrupt colleague of their father, who threatens them or their planet. The pilot simplified a lot of what made the comics so wild. The Powers' abilities were streamlined for budget. Alex had super strength, Jack could shrink, Julie ran at super speed instead of flying, and Katie shot little energy bursts but barely got screen time. Unlike the comics, their parents already knew about their powers, and the show skipped the origin story entirely, just a quick voiceover nod to the alien passing on the gifts. And of course, the show dialed back on the darker themes of the comics, so it stayed firmly in the kid-friendly territory. The pilot had a few genuinely fun moments, hallway crush gags, and authentic sibling banter, but most of the superheroics were oddly staged or underwhelming. Parents in the show swung wildly between strict lectures and casual acceptance of superpowers, which added some unintentionally funny beats. Ultimately, the pilot never led to a full series. There was no compelling villain beyond a one-off haunted house, no larger mission, and no real hook to bring viewers back for episode 2. That said, for a low-budget, early 90s kids show, it's still occasionally funny, perfectly watchable, and the target audience is clear. Compared to other superhero misfires of the era, Power Pack is small, safe, and easy to enjoy. Generation X, 1996. By the mid-90s, Marvel wanted to expand the X-Men universe, and that's how Generation X came to life. The idea was simple. It followed a brand new group of mutant teens as they navigated high school drama, but with superpowers. The pilot aired on February 20th, 1996, and, well, it was a mess. It was a visual roller coaster in all the wrong ways. Bright swirling colors, over-the-top MTV-style edits, and a ton of green lighting made it feel like a flashy 90s tech movie more than an X-Men story, and even a $4 million budget couldn't save it from looking awkward and dated. The cast did well. Heather McComb played Jubilee, Viola Hughes was the White Queen, and Jeremy Ratchford played Banshee. Characters from the comics like M, Mondo, and Skin made it to live action, but budget constraints meant some of their powers were simplified. New, more manageable characters, Buff and Refrax, were added to fill in gaps. Jubilee kept her signature fireworks, Mondo could absorb the density of objects, Skin's stretchy skin made for some fun visuals, and M, well, her superpower was just being perfect. Refrax got eye lasers and budding X-ray vision, much to Buff's understandable annoyance. Then there was Matt Frewer as Russell Tresh, the villain who truly stole the show. Frewer basically carried the pilot on his own, giving the story most of its energy. The plot itself was, frankly, not great. Teens mutate spontaneously, deal with public prejudice, and get shipped off to Charles Xavier's academy. But the villain Tresh is a dream science whiz who uses subliminal ads and a dream machine to invade minds, hoping to extract mutant brain fluid to become super psychic. It's convoluted, weird, and often ridiculous. Between dream sequences and teens bickering or sneaking off for ice cream socials, the story barely hangs together. It's easy to see why the pilot never became a series. The story strayed far from the X-Men comics. Most classic characters were left out, and the visual style hasn't aged well. Watch it now, and it's a wild, over-the-top, full-on 90s throwback and fascinating, mostly thanks to Frewer's delightfully unhinged performance. By the late 2000s, when the YouTube crowd rediscovered Generation X, it earned a legendary reputation for all the wrong reasons. And the internet hasn't been shy about it. Countless videos dissect this pilot, laughing at it while occasionally giving credit where it's due. Aquaman / Mercy Reef, 2006. Back in the mid-2000s, there was an Aquaman series that promised to dive into the origins of Aquaman, with Justin Hartley playing the role. It was referred to as Mercy Reef or Tempest Bay and was greenlit for the WB, but when the network merged with UPN to form the CW, the project was quietly shelved. Hartley's Aquaman had already done well on Smallville during its 5th season in the episode Aqua, where he played Arthur Curry. The character's appearance was so well received that series creators Al Gough and Miles Miller thought a standalone Aquaman series could do well. Instead of a direct spin-off, they wanted to do an epic story exploring AC's Atlantean heritage and his journey to balance being both king and hero. The pilot opens with Arthur Curry struggling to find his place in the world. After witnessing his mother Atlanta seemingly die, though she was secretly returned to Atlantis, he spent years grappling with his mysterious past. His father, Coast Guard officer Tom Curry, tries to keep him grounded, but Arthur's unique connection to the ocean keeps landing him in trouble. Things heat up when he's attacked by a siren named Nadia, who once targeted his mother and now wants to drag him back to Atlantis. Just in time, an Atlantean exile and lighthouse keeper, McCaffrey, rescues him and begins training Arthur Curry to become the hero he's destined to be, revealing his true Atlantean name, Orn. Despite its promise, the CW passed on the series. But Aquaman's story didn't end there. On July 25th, 2006, Warner Bros. Made the pilot available on iTunes, one of the studio's first digital releases, and it shot to #1 almost immediately. In 2007, it aired on Canada's YTV during their Superhero Saturday Marathon, and some Smallville DVD sets included the pilot as a bonus. Later DC releases like Justice League, Crisis on Two Earths, and Smallville, the complete series, also featured it, and although it never became a full series, Hartley's Aquaman has survived as a cult favorite, a one-shot glimpse into what might have been. Wonder Woman 2011. In 2011, Warner Bros. Television and DC Entertainment teamed up with NBC to create a fresh take on Wonder Woman, starring Adrienne Palicki as Diana and Elizabeth Hurley as the villainous Veronica Cale, with Pedro Pascal also in the cast. Ironic, since he would end up returning as the villain for Wonder Woman 1984 in 2020. The pilot, which was developed by David E. Kelly and directed by Jeffrey Reiner, explored Diana's life on two very different fronts. business. By day, she ran Themyscira Industries as a CEO. By night, she fought crime as Wonder Woman. Juggling corporate responsibilities, public appearances, and her superhero duties eventually leads her to adopt a third identity, Diana Prince, allowing her brief moments of normalcy, relaxing at home, enjoying hobbies, and living life like an ordinary person. The story begins with a shocking tragedy. A college-bound teen collapses and dies from a mysterious illness linked to performance-enhancing drugs. Meanwhile, Diana intercepts a super-strong criminal on Hollywood Boulevard and collects a blood sample that points to Kale, leading to a tense showdown. In the end, we see Diana take on Kale's superpowered henchman and putting Kale behind bars, even when there are legal threats and public scrutiny. Steve Trevor also returns, now married, but ready to help Diana in her fight as Wonder Woman. The pilot aimed to modernize Diana, focusing on her dual life as an executive and a vigilante while downplaying her Amazonian origins, presenting her more as a contemporary hero navigating Los Angeles and a legendary figure from Themyscira. NBC ultimately decided not to pick up the series, and the pilot never aired officially. It briefly appeared on YouTube before it was removed. Critics were harsh. They pointed out the awkward pacing and the uneven execution, but some still recognize a few strong moments in it. David E. Kelly later admitted that there were a few missteps, but expressed regret that the show never had a chance to evolve, praising the cast for their work. Years later, Palicki reflected that the timing wasn't right and that a later release might have made it more successful. Pascal also made comments. He praised the bold approach, noting that the show never got the opportunity to reach its full potential. The Flash, 1990. In 1990, CBS tried to ride the wave of superhero mania sparked by Tim Burton's Batman by bringing another comic book icon to life on the small screen, The Flash. Tasked with developing the series, writers Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo created a 2-hour pilot that impressed the network enough to greenlight a full season. At the time, it was one of the most expensive television productions ever. The pilot alone cost $6 million, with each subsequent episode running $1.6 million, a staggering amount that was largely because of the special effects needed to show the Flash's signature speed. Every red streak was painstakingly crafted through multiple exposures, slow-motion acting, and chemical processing, while practical stunts and explosive effects added even more to the budget. The hero's costume was another expensive thing. CBS executives initially wanted a simple tracksuit with flashing LEDs, but Bilson and DeMeo convinced comic artist Dave Stevens to design a more classical Flash look. A darker crimson suit with sculpted foam muscles, a pointed nose like Batman, gold lightning accents, and red boots. 4 suits were made, costing $100,000 in total. The only problem was that lead actor John Wesley Shipp already had a muscular build, so with the foam overlay, the final look was overbuilt. The series follows Barry Allen, a forensic scientist who gains super speed after a lab accident. Along the way, he meets Dr. Tina, who helps him figure out what's going on with him. Using his new powers, Barry becomes the Flash, fighting crime in Central City while juggling his everyday life. The pilot aired on September 20th, 1990, directly opposite NBC's The Cosby Show, but it faced stiff competition from The Simpsons, which had just moved to Thursday nights and quickly became a cultural phenomenon. While The Flash managed to have respectable ratings with over 10 million viewers, CBS struggled with its massive production costs and frequent schedule interruptions for Gulf War coverage and the World Series. By the end of the season, the network decided it wasn't worth continuing, and the series was canceled after just 1 season. Despite its short run, The Flash found a devoted cult following. It introduced the first live-action incarnations of classic supervillains like Captain Cold, Mirror Master, and the Trickster. The show even experimented with ambitious ideas, including a dystopian alternate future storyline, giving fans a glimpse of what could have been if it had survived beyond its single season. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., 1998. In 1998, Fox aired Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. With a production budget of $6 million, the project brought together writer David Goyer and director Rod Hardy, aiming to translate the Marvel Comics spy world to the small screen. David Hasselhoff was cast in the lead role of Nick Fury, a choice the studio hoped would give the series some recognizable star power. The production leaned into the source material, keeping details like Fury's iconic eye patch and incorporating familiar characters from the Marvel espionage universe. In this pilot, Hydra storms a S.H.I.E.L.D. facility, kills Clay Quartermain, and revives Baron von Strucker. Retired in a Yukon mine, Nick Fury is pulled back into action by S.H.I.E.L.D. agents Pierce and Valentina DeFontaine. He only agrees after learning about Quartermain's death. On a helicarrier, Fury reunites with old allies, meets a new telepath, and discovers S.H.I.E.L.D.'s advanced tech, including a life model decoy of himself. Fury learns that von Strucker's daughter, Viper, plans to use the deadly Death's Head virus virus originally designed by Arnim Zola. He tracks Hydra to Berlin and the Aleutian Islands, surviving traps, poison lipstick, and ambushes. The team ends up splitting up. DeFontaine heads to Manhattan to stop a virus-laden truck, while Fury infiltrates Hydra's base. After some tense battles, telepath Kate Neville retrieves the abort code from Viper's mind, stopping the virus. In the end, Hydra is mostly defeated, Fury returns to S.H.I.E.L.D., but Viper escapes, bringing Von Strucker back to life and setting the stage for the next showdown. The tone of the film was intentionally tongue-in-cheek, but opinions on its execution were mixed. Hasselhoff's performance stood out, but the rest of the film didn't quite hit the mark. Despite initial buzz and Hasselhoff's star power, the show never really moved beyond the pilot, and plans for a full series or follow-up films quietly faded away. Birds of Prey 2002. Loosely based on the DC Comics series, Birds of Prey was set in a Gotham City that had been seemingly abandoned by Batman, leaving a vacuum that needed filling. In an interesting nod to the Batman films, the show's early trailers and opening credits used footage of Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne and Michelle Pfeiffer as Selina Kyle from Batman Returns. The classic Bat and Catsuits were repurposed and repainted for the series, and commissioned artwork featured the Burton-era characters was even planned for a TV guide cover, though the series was canceled before this was completed. The show was about a new team of heroes in Gotham. Barbara Gordon, now called Oracle, teamed up with Helena Kyle, the Huntress and heir to the Wayne fortune, to protect the city. They were joined by Dinah Redmond, a young girl with telepathic powers connected to Black Canary, Alfred Pennyworth, who helped Helena, and Detective Jesse Reese, a police officer who struggled to understand the strange crimes and powers he saw around the city. Together, they faced metahumans and a hidden world of people with powers that ordinary Gotham citizens didn't even know existed. At first, Detective Reese didn't trust Helena and even tried to arrest her, but over time he realized that the Birds of Prey were needed to fight criminals the police couldn't handle. The show also had a bigger mystery involving Dr. Harleen Quinzel, whose secret schemes and tricky therapy sessions with Helena slowly came to light and led up to the series finale. Technically, the pilot aired only once as a self-contained story, and though it led into the short series, it remained unique and distinct from the other episodes that followed. Despite a strong debut, which drew 7.6 million viewers and was the network's biggest premiere in the 18 to 34 demographic at the time, ratings quickly declined. The show had 13 episodes in total before being canceled. Marvelous verdict! Well, with that, guys, we've come to the end of this video. Which of these pilots did you like the most? Are there any that you wish weren't canceled? And are there any others you think should have been on this list? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and if you enjoyed watching this, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.